our last session for today, the third panel. We have a special guest of honor, Mr. Ashraf Tarsim, the senior macroeconomist, governance, economic, and financial management from North Africa at the African Development Bank. The topics that we will be talking about would be on infrastructure investments in renewable energy and the challenge of state impunity. The lead speaker for this panel will be Maged Mahmoud, Acting Executive Director, Regional Center of Renewable Energy and Energy Efficiency. And we have the moderator, Dr. Toya C. Craig, Energy Business Development Leader, Block Power, and the panelists, we have Adekweju Adebajo, Chief Executive Officer, Lumos Nigeria, Dirk Hendricks, Secretary General, European Renewable Energies Federation, Yewande Sadiku, Executive Secretary, CEO, Nigerian Investment Promotion Commission, Dr. Ama Ikuru, General Manager, Capacity Building, Nigerian Content Development and Monitoring Board. So I hand it over now to Dr. Toya C. Craig to moderate this session. Thank you.
All right, thank you so much. Thank you so much, Stephanie. Apologies for my voice. It's been a long few days, but I'm sure I'm going to cope. And thanks for the last session. That was very informative. Thank you so much to the speakers and the panelists. So I'll just go straight to it because I don't want to wait any of our time. So the topic has been stated already as infrastructural investment in renewables. No matter what we do, if there's no investment available, then we're not able to move to the next stage. So I'll allow the special guest of honor to speak, and then I'll go to the lead speaker. Of course, the panelists will speak. So I'll just follow the last session's order. So I'd like the participants to actually introduce themselves. So I'll start from the panelists, and then I'll end with the special guest of honor who will then give his 10-minute speech. So Dr. Ama Ikuru, are you in the house?
Yes, I am. I think my video was stopped, so somebody needs to put that on. So my name is Ama Ikuru. I work for the Nigerian Content Development and Monitoring Board. Basically, what we have to do there is to help the development of local capacities and capabilities for participation in the oil and gas industry. What we do is backed by legislation, so there's an act of law that supports what we do as we work with the oil and gas industry and the service companies to develop local capacity and capabilities. We've been in existence now for about 10 years, and we've made marked improvement in activities in the oil and gas industry. And quite frankly, listening to the different discussants and presenters today, I have a feeling that the model we've used in achieving success in the oil and gas industry can very well be applied to the renewable energy sector and will achieve almost the same level of success. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. I'll move to the next panelist, Dirk Hendricks.
Yeah, what we have heard here so far, and I guess specifically what Angelina said relatively here at the beginning of our meeting, that Africa can really leapfrog here any other continent when it comes to renewable energy development. And there were also another aspect, power to the people and also power to women. And I mean, I can really just echo this here in my brief kickoff statement. If Africa would like to have or any kind of government who would like to have kind of like very cost-effective energy system transformation needs, and this has been said here already a number of times before, definitely needs to have a very strong political will and also the courage to dedicate to kind of like long-term commitment to, for example, international commitments, but I mean also to concrete renewable energy goals. The reliable governance framework plays also a major important part, specifically for investment security and investment confidence. And in addition to that is, and this is what we see here, for example, for the moment in Europe, to come up with the economic framework or for a kind of like new energy market designs on where you have renewables as kind of like centerpiece. And all these kind of three aspects, so the clear political setting and vision to go down a path and to roll out this vision on how renewable energy is coming in, reliable governance framework, the new energy market design, this all must be supported by financing structures and tools, in particular access to cheap capitals. There are several tools available. Public-private partnerships, which also sometimes prove very beneficial, specifically if you follow, for example, the Scandinavian model. Yeah?
Yeah, I think we'll go into the details very soon. So I'm just doing general introduction so we can go back to when we start discussing.
Sorry.
No, it's okay.
Okay,
yeah.
Thanks.
So Maged Mahmoud, sure you're in the house. He's the lead speaker. If you can just introduce yourself, then I'll allow the special guest of honor to carry on.
Well, thank you. I'm Maged Mahmoud. I'm the technical director and acting executive director of the Regional Center for Renewable Energy and Energy Efficiency, serving North Africa and Arab countries. It's my pleasure to be with you, of course. I have been working in the field of sustainable energy, particularly renewable energy, for the past 25 years. So it would be my pleasure to reflect some of the, I would say, the things that I have experienced all over the quarter of a century that I have lived till now in this domain. And I have been also working a lot with the Egyptian government, and I'm very happy to see the previous sessions that have touched what happened there. So thank you very much for introducing this to the African continent.
Perfect. So I'll allow my lead speaker to give us his presentation, Maged Mahmoud. He just introduced himself, and I'm sure I've also read a lot of great things that have been done at the ReEnergy right there in Egypt. So the lead speaker, you can just take the floor.
Okay, can you see the screen now?
Yes.
Excellent. So, as I told you earlier, I'm coming from the Regional Center for Renewable Energy and Energy Efficiency. We are serving 17 member states, including, in fact, in African countries, Arab African countries. And we are, in fact, active in supporting the energy transition in the region around us. And we are the technical arm of the League of Arab States and partners with the IRENA, with World Bank, with many institutions in this domain. We were established 12 years ago, and allow me to, in fact, reflect some of our experiences in the following presentation. I'd like to start with the importance of understanding how we are attracting investments to renewable energy business. And here we need to think about financing instruments. And there are a variety of instruments that we are discussing. These instruments vary from, of course, the debts to equity to commercial and soft loans and so on. There are two objectives that we are all looking for. The first is to de-risk, to reduce the level of risk assumed by different entities engaged. And the second is the level of leverage, that when we put or inject some money through our country resource, donors resource, whatever we have, we are attracting more, mobilize more resources into the projects. And in fact, it was very interesting at the beginning of this day to see the leverage effect, how much money is the country is putting against how much is attracted by foreign direct investors, for example. And these are the things that we're looking at, reducing the risks and increasing the leverage. So when we are saying that, when we are discussing the risks, we have heard all the day about the risks. In fact, there are eight sets of risks that we have identified, and I think most of the researchers in this domain are aware of: financial, market, resource, geopolitical, business viability, environmental, of course, building and testing, commissioning, and so on, and the operational risks. And in fact, addressing these risks have several tools, and among these are actions adopted by the governments. And this is the door to our discussion today. And when we are discussing the role of governments in this, we are speaking about, in fact, five areas, five frameworks. The first is the legal framework. The legal framework, the defining the supporting policies, the development schemes and responsibilities, etc. And then the regulatory framework, which details the parties' commitments and contractual requirements, licensing processes, and so on. And then there is the tariff framework. And this is one of the most important part, that defining the tariff structures and value and how the structure would work. And then the contractual framework, which is really critical, standards, templates, contracts, and so on. And finally, supplementary frameworks that contain supporting mechanisms. For example, including resource assessment, technology transfer, soft finance, and so on. So when we look into the government interventions, they need to think about all these, I would say, five categories, five frameworks that they need to work on. And there are several policies that are adopted worldwide, and this is just a snapshot of the main policies and supporting policies. Main policies can be quantitative or can be pricing. Other policies can be financial, can be fiscal, like taxes, customs, and so on, and then contractual. But when we dig more into this, we will find some requirement for a business conducive environment. And this includes, first of all, what we need to put ourselves into the shoes of the investor. How much is the market size? Is it profitable or not? Would I work there for one or two projects, or I would be there for 20 years to come? And then the transparency of the system that is developed, the legal and regulatory that we entered, the infrastructure, the stability of the local currency, of course, the political and economical stability, the ease of doing business in the country, how many days or months are required to obtain permits and so on, the country's investment track record, foreign investment track record in general, not only in the energy domain, the readiness of financial institutions to inject money into the market, the partnerships that can be established if we have high quality partners within the country, and so on. There are several factors that would make the business environment conducive. But we can summarize this into few factors, in fact, to have a compelling business environment. First of all, the political commitment. Without a real political commitment, there will be no real growth in the market. Investor confidence in the national market is a must. And then the effective engagement of, I would say here, the utilities, first of all, and the state-backed private companies. This would help a lot establish these public-private partnerships, and even 4Bs, public-private people partnerships, are all essential. And then to have a clear set of bankable projects. It is not just having a target or a project. It's having the bankability issue. That is, you can have some sort of clarity in what you are doing, and the ROI is clear, and so on. And then the contractual set of documents, BBA, clear terms and accepted by the international community, by the investors, and by the financiers. Also, the project support with respect to grid connection, how this would be secured. Is it part of the project, or it is given by the country? The zoning and allocation of land, securities, how senior creditors are accepting, for example, credentials of and collaterals of investors, credit support, of course. All these elements are essential, and we need to look at. And we should not forget the linkages, that we are speaking not only about producing electricity generation, but we are speaking about transmission. And this is a bottleneck for many countries. We are speaking about distribution, the readiness for the distribution companies to accept that the consumer will become a producer, the prosumer concept. And of course, the discipline and the collection of tariffs, how it is done, collection of bills, I mean, and the tariff setting, as I indicated earlier, all this together. And we need to think also about, there are also, if we have solved all these elements, there is also finance needed. the finance needed for improving the integration of the renewable energy into the current system, improving the reliability, having balanced energy, the balance, when we speak about, for example, storage system, when we speak about battery systems and so on, we're balancing power. When we speak about power to X revolution that we are witnessing right now, the e-mobility and so on, the hydrogen, we have heard about it from the previous sessions. All these elements are essential that government look at and look after, in fact, and then we'd have a real market growth. And I'm quoting here Churchill during World War II, that he who fails to plan is planning to fail. We need to plan well all these elements and walk the talk. And I'll give example from my region, and this will be very fast. First, the Arab region right now, we have around 6% renewable energy share of the installed capacities. And 7 are new renewables, solar and wind, and few biomass, and the rest are hydro. But when we look into the African countries, the North Africa, plus Djibouti, Somalia, Mauritania, and Sudan, this is the countries that part of our constituency. We will find that North Africa has 12.4% share of renewable electricity now. This is in this particular moment. We have 5 gigawatts of wind and solar and 7 gigawatts of hydro. And you can see this is a substantial share compared to many other countries in the continent. And this has attracted $15 billion into new projects in solar and wind alone, not including hydro. Hydro make the number up to 30 billion. And we can see over the 10 years, the transition from relying on wind on coastal areas to moving toward photovoltaic in several industries, serving the hotel sector, the residential sectors, and so on. The policies adopted now in this particular moment in the North African region is mainly competitive bids and auctions, direct proposal submission with very stringent criteria. Feed-in tariff is in fact now phasing out of in most countries. There's no much feed-in tariff now. And then net metering is getting a lot of momentum, especially in the decentralized solutions, a rooftop system for residential, commercial, and the industrial sector, and then EPC contracting. And we can see this is a map showing the adopted policies. But when we look into FEDs and BEDs, and we have heard about Bimban, we have seen the video earlier today. When we look into this all over the North African region, we will find critical items here, critical elements of the success. First of all, readiness of associated documents. This has delayed some countries for 3 to 4 years at the beginning. Whenever they are ready, you can move very fast. Then the administrative processes. And you can see here the map that on the bottom that we prepared, showcasing what there are 28 steps that you need to go into to have a license for a project and to sign the contract and to reach financial closure. And then the arbitration issue, the foreign currency, how you address this risk. All these need to be looked at. Also the institutional capacity, the implementation capacity within the government institutions. They need to be up to the level of thinking, how the investors are thinking and how to move very fast, and having financial instruments. In fact, when we are hearing number, for example, we have heard that Egypt now has around 2.3 cents per kilowatt hour for their projects. And we are hearing another numbers up to 6, 7, and sometimes over 10 cents. What is the difference in that? How we judge on our success? We need to look into the details, in fact. And the details mean that is grid connection is part of this price or not? Do we have I would say permits, licensing costs, and so on, complying with environmental consideration, and all these elements, and also the share of the public finance and concessional finance in the funding. All these elements are critical, and based on our exercises that we are conducting in the region, we found that now there is a transition from energy companies, petroleum, oil, and gas, and so on, to become engaged in the renewable energy business. And now there are 10 Arab countries, I would say, obliging the oil companies to invest in renewable energy. We are seeing countries having state-backed private sector companies to work in partnerships. For example, SKTM in Algeria, Mazen in Morocco, lately in Libya, another new company, and so on. These are all elements that we need to look at. Also, the engagement of banks, local banks, and this is a commitment. And you remember, I think you have all heard last week on the first green bonds in Egypt. $500 million have been, in fact, leveraged for green projects, including wind and solar projects. So other concepts based for Islamic countries, for example, based on green sukuk. There are plenty of areas that we can address. And the green finance for the MENA region, the climate finance was around 1.4 billion US dollar, mostly in Morocco and Egypt, by the way. But all of these have been addressing mega scale projects. And this would raise a question on decentralized solutions. And here come the role of the local banks and the microfinance, and to be engaged in technical assistance, and to be engaged in providing soft loans and so on, and using the IT and the new era that we are all living now to introduce web-based tools to enable fast-track projects. The targets in the region, at least in the Arab region now, are around 190 gigawatts by 2035. For Africa, you can see the targets, for example, for Egypt, 42% by the year 2035. Just 2 days ago, the minister in Egypt announced that Egypt is considering to reach 60% renewable electricity by 2035. You can find very good targets for example, in Algeria, around 22 gigas, 100% target in Djibouti, although the capacity is only 1 giga. We have ambitious targets, and the question is, we need to get good policies and good governance and good mechanisms, implementation mechanisms to reach these targets. For North African countries, only in 7 Arab African countries, we are seeing up to 2035, 100 gigawatts of business opportunities for investors. This is huge. And this is almost 1/3 of the Africa Renewable Energy Initiative target. 1/3 is only in these 7 countries. The final thing that I'm going to say, that we are seeing clear commitment to embrace strong forward-thinking policies. We are seeing a conducive environment being shaped all over the region. The market response is good, but we need to walk the talk. We need to act fast. And let me please quote Peter Drucker, the father of modern management, that the best way to predict your future is to create it. We need to create our future. Thank you very much. I'm sorry for taking long. Thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you very much. So one thing I want to throw out there to our panelists is, currently, we really don't have so much excuse, especially when it comes to renewable energy, because renewables recently has been receiving double the amount of investment that conventional power has been getting for quite a few years now. So I just want the panelists to chip in their points, then I have a few questions that I've noted here together. One of it is especially when it comes to reliability of policy, and I'll also share some of the experience I personally have in looking for funds that never came up. So I'll go straight to my panelists, and I would like them to just chip in their points. So I'll start again from Derek Hendricks, so you can continue from where you stopped.
My apologies that I came up already with my points before. Yeah, I guess here, as also have heard here in the presentation and before, I guess really that the political framework and a governance framework to allow investors to investment security and investment confidence, that this is really one of the main topics to come in. And I mean, we see this if you're going to have, for example, if government has a kind of like clear strategy and vision on how to develop the sector, renewable energy sector in the country, and putting it in, and then over the course of the years, not changing it specifically, no retroactive changes, etc., that this is a kind of like a very good guarantee to stimulate quite a lot of investments. And I mean, specifically, as we have seen now here, the renewable energy prices coming down so much that also support mechanisms can be even relatively low, because exactly it, normally you have some really good business cases here. So next, from these top-down approach to have kind of like the right market framework, economic framework, government framework, and legal framework. Here, something else that sort of like can be considered specifically, and this is here to enable the participation of citizens in it. And I mean, again, here, this is the framework to enable them is really very important. But I mean, the huge advantage is that you can reach the targets much faster, and you tap into additional capital, because if people see that something is reliable, that they're going to get the electricity and so on, they are also willing to share it. And this is just some observations how it worked in other countries where this was sort of like really quite well. This is just what I would like to add, in addition to what we have heard already before. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Dak. I have a straight question for you, but I'll keep it for the end of the presentation. So I'll go back to Adepeju is back in the house. Are you there?
Yes, I am. Can you hear me?
Oh, finally, yes. Thanks.
Okay, apologies. I have a bad connection. I'm the CEO of Lumos Nigeria. Lumos is a solar home systems company, which means it is a distributed renewable energy. We have about 100,000 customers, and we're the market leader. We're all over Nigeria in every single state. Let me take the opportunity to make some comments on how I believe infrastructure is necessary to improve the availability of renewable energy. First, I think we have talked about targets. It's extremely important that the government sets targets and recognizes renewable energy as part of the framework required to provide electricity for all. I wrote an article that said that Nigeria has more people without electricity than the whole of the population of Germany, which is quite compelling. And given where we are in terms of the need for economic recovery, especially post-COVID, the need for electricity, even in the furthest corners of the country, is very, very imperative. So distributed renewable energy enables you reach the places that the grid can't reach. One of the challenges we have is the issue of awareness. The previous speaker talked about consumer education and enabling consumers to have a perception that renewable energy is in fact desirable, it is in fact affordable, and it is in fact available. And Lumos has been able to solve some of those issues by piggybacking on MTN, which is a telecoms firm, and using their distribution network. So we are available through MTN stores, and also using their payment mechanisms. And so with the use of airtime, we are able to allow consumers to pay over a period of time, therefore making renewable energy actually something that they can afford and consider. So these are just two thoughts I would like to put up. I'm sure we'll come back and discuss it further. But the Nigerian government, in fairness, has recently put out an economic sustainability plan, where there's a plan to enable 5 million solar home systems for 25 million people, and a substantial amount of money has been put behind this. We're still grappling with, I love the diagram that the keynote speaker showed, we're still grappling with trying to battle our way through the paperwork and bureaucracy and understanding exactly how it will be implemented. But we're very encouraged by the government formally recognizing the role of renewable energy in solving the energy gap in Nigeria. Thank you.
Wow, thank you so much. It's good to hear. I already have questions. I'll come back to that. So I'll just direct this, my first question, straight to Dak. Dak, I know that in your institution, you've been doing some capacity and competence training for stakeholders across Europe. So how has the response been, especially when it comes to government parastatals? Because we are also discussing state impunity. Because it's often hard to often change people's mindsets So I just want to know, how's the response been so that we can learn something from there, because it's good to say we are doing capacity training or we are doing competence training. How's the response been and what effect has that had on them supporting this kind of investment?
I guess thank you. I guess the most important thing is that the moment, for example, governments and stakeholders realize that they can have a real business case with renewable energy, specifically always in comparison with let's say conventional energy systems. When they realize this, that they can sort of like save money, actively participate, do something themselves, and I mean, in particular, also to become somehow independent a little bit about it. You see that the interest and the motivation is really very quite high. What we see here is, and I mean, we are advising several governments here in Europe, is that even when governments have some really very good intentions to support the renewable energy development, that this is not always followed by, for example, good legislation. We had, for example, the case in Belgium, where the government for a province of Belgium, here in this case Wallonia, was really very eager to promote it, but I mean, set up the legislation completely wrong. And so it had finally the opposite effect than which was actually planned. So they are currently revising it. And like this, it will go a little bit better. What I can also tell you is here, and I just come across it because it had been mentioned here before in the previous presentation, here about feed-in tariffs and also bids and tenders and auctions. Here, there's quite a funny discourse currently going on here in Europe again, where normally feed-in tariffs had been replaced by auctions and bids. But I mean, because they are sort of like quite complicated to follow, specifically for smaller stockholders, say, for example, small, medium-priced enterprises, call it energy communities, etc. There is now a kind of like an idea to come back to something similar to the original idea of feed-in tariffs, because the simple part is that normally they have been proven the most efficient and the most best way to kickstart renewable energy development. And of course, it definitely needs to be said that they need to be put right. But I mean, thanks. So you can't put a too high price incentive in it, because otherwise you ruin the system. But I mean, nevertheless, if you do this, and I mean, you see, for example, for photovoltaic, the prices came quite down, then it might be a really very good instrument to do this. But to come quick to summarize here the response, there is sort of like still a lot of interest in it, and I mean, even countries who were at the beginning very suspicious, like for example, about can renewable energies cover the demand of energy, or for example, here the discussion that was in the previous session about grid stability and so on and so on. All this that once you talk to them, you show them the different options that are on the table, there's quite sort of like a high interest. And I guess something which is really very enriching is also here that, for example, governments who were normally quite opposing to renewables, that they are now realizing that specifically for their economy and for their enterprises, be it large or small and medium-sized ones, it is a huge beneficial, because normally they have much cheaper, much more reliable energy available through this. And it's so you have these positive spill-off effects into the economy, local wealth creation, local jobs creation, and this is it. And by the way, also here, when it comes to capacity training, like for example in Belgium, here I know it most, it is very important to also educate, for example, engineers, project developers, etc., to have these skills, Because, for example, I can tell you that if you want to do something here in Belgium, it is sometimes really quite hard to find the relevant people who have the knowledge. So we are then going, for example, to people from Spain or from Italy who can help there in this case.
Yeah, thank you so much, Doc. I'll have my next question to the lead speaker, Maged. It's about the success that we have seen both in North Africa and in the Middle East in the recent years, especially in renewables. I mean, investment goes, like you have rightly presented, investment goes far beyond just money. Sometimes it has to do with credit support and then security, and most importantly, the political stability or the confidence in the politics or the government of the day. Which one would you think have helped you guys the most? Because it's easy to say things are working in the Middle East and in North Africa, but I think it goes beyond the money. So I would like you to speak about this impact of this security support and maybe the guarantees and what we can learn from there.
So we have two cases here. One case is that there is some sort of sovereign guarantee provided by the government for the investor. And this has been, for example, practiced in Morocco and in Egypt. Another case is that you do not offer sovereign guarantees, but you are offering smaller sizes of project. So you can link the applicability of having sovereign guarantees to issuing very large scale projects. For example, in Egypt, the sizes are from 50 to 250 megawatts. But when in Tunisia, it is some sort in the auctioning scheme that they have announced or in fact practiced, they have from 10 to 30 megawatts, so a lower scale. So when you are relying more on local investors and on smaller size projects, you would not need these strong sovereign guarantees that are typically required for the utility scale projects. We have seen experiences that the trust in the utility itself would offer some sort of guarantees for some sort of a guarantee to the investor. So in many cases, we have seen investors accepting just letter of credits. And these letter of credits would, in fact, are substituting the overall sovereign guarantees. So there are several cases. Each case is unique. There is no silver bullet. There is no one size fits all. We need to look into each case, but generally, in a small scale project, the beauty of decentralized options that you do not necessarily need this sort of sovereign guarantees and governmental, in fact, guarantee of payment. The business model that is adapted, I would say, getting a wider interest at least in North Africa now, is a concept of captive market, private-to-private partnerships, private-to-private selling of electricity. And here we have, by the law, the legal framework allows private companies to sell electricity to consumers directly with supervision, and this is important, the supervision of the regulator. And here comes that to have a truly independent regulator who look for the interest of the country and the interest of the consumers on the same time, and governing the relations and ensuring that no, in fact, I would say problems in the implementation of the contracts. We are seeing also that corporate sourcing of renewables is in fact creating a good market that somehow is mobilizing the local companies to grow. So this is also, we are seeing many of the companies on the food industry, beverages, and so on, and so on. So the issue, which part of the equation is more important? I would say, first of all, you need to make sure that you have a clear regulation that allows, I would say, a level playing field. Clear regulations that would help those who would like to invest in producing electricity to invest in that. Because in many cases, you can see a monopoly that the utility would like to keep selling, producing and selling electricity to the utilities that is owned by a national company or a national authority. So this is one thing, the flexibility in the market. The second part, you would like me to stop there? It's okay.
No, because of time. I'm sure there will still be many questions. This is just to tell the panelists there are some questions in the question and answer chat box. So if you see any of the questions that you want to answer, text Maged. I'll still come back to you. Dr. Amaiku is back in the house. I have a question for you, Dr. Ama. How will the existence of in-country capacity support the growth of investment and development of infrastructure for renewable energy? Your experience and what you would like to chip in for this.
So similar to what we've done in the oil and the gas industry, where we started with only 5% participation of locals in the industry. We've built capacity of Nigerians, we've built the level of ownership of Nigerians for facilities, for equipment, and for processes in the industry. Right now, where we have about 31% participation, specifically in the area of marine vessels, where Nigerians were not playing at all. Now they have up to 40% participation in the industry. What I'm then thinking is that, the factors of production, you need resources. Yeah? Nigeria and even Africa has a lot of resources. Yeah, we have wind, we have biogas, we have geothermal, we have all the things you need to produce renewable energy. Yeah, we have also labor. Labor can be skilled up, to participate in the industry. Now we are lacking this in the area of technology and then maybe capital. In the oil and gas industry, the issue of capital is going forward, if we bring the model that we use in the oil and gas industry into the renewable energy space, I'm thinking of maybe a user financed scheme that will help us come up with the additional capacity in the area of renewable energy. I'm thinking in the oil industry, we have a 1% charge on the invoices of all the major operators. I'm thinking a 1% charge on the bills of all the users, which will then help people accumulate whatever over time for investment in the oil and gas industry. Nigeria is not as lucky as what we saw in Argentina today, where you had willing investors coming up to take up those projects and actually deliver them. So we need to have a creative solution internally, and we need that capacity to get it, pulled together, packaged, and delivered. We're also doing, over the 10-year period we've existed as a regulatory body in the oil and gas industry. We've spent about 10 million man-hours training people in different scale areas. And with that, you have a very rich set of people ready to take up the skills you require, to support even the renewable energy space. So I think local capacity is central to successful investment in Nigerian oil and gas, in the Nigerian renewable energy space. Over the years, a number of players have come up to try to succeed there. The NIPP projects have not been quite successful. I'm happy to hear about Lumus, and I'm hoping one day I'll see Lumus around my space where they're ready to sell me renewable energy. But what we see today is that we have the micro. You were talking about mini grids. I'm thinking about micro grids where individuals, some states and maybe estates are thinking of installing something in the energy space to help them, really enjoy the benefits of renewable energy. So for that to happen, we need local capacity to 1, do the installation, 2, do the maintenance, 3, work even on technology. I'm also thinking at some point we need to think seriously about local manufacturing. If you have local players being able to manufacture either the batteries or the panels, then it's possible to move very quickly. In the oil and gas space, we were able to go even into the manufacturing of cables. Most of the cables we use in the oil and gas industry is now manufactured in country. So if we can do that for cables, we can do that for solar panels, we can do that for batteries. So
thank you so much.
One priority is capacity development, and we need to focus on that.
Thank you so much, Doctor. I'll chip in something like that, which will bring me to the next question that I'll direct to Adekunle Adebayo. I see that the MC is already switching on. So the last question will be, what's your experience in the distributed renewable energy sector? And has it been because you have been linked to a private company that has informed your success? Or what would be your advice because distributed renewable energy, it's one of the way forward where there is no grid at all. So I want you to answer that.
Okay, thank you very much. So Lumos is purely a private sector company, and was established in Nigeria about 5 years ago. And we were really attracted by the opportunity in Nigeria. Like I said, there are more Nigerians who are off-grid or have bad grid than there are Germans in Germany. So that is a very big market. And as I said earlier on, we're purely private sector. We figured out distribution, which, as I said earlier on, was on the back of MTN initially. But to develop that sector further for other players, I mean, there are other telcos who have that retail distribution network, and the banks and the microfinance institutions could also be considered for the distribution network. We did a lot of market education. We find that most of our customers are, we have just over 100,000 customers in a country of over 200 million people. So by definition, most of our customers are early adopters. We find that they tend to be better educated, university educated, which in itself is a contradiction, because the people who need it the most are the people in the rural areas who may not have as much education. And therein lies the role of the government in being able to ensure that some of these people, so because of that, we're drawn perhaps to more the urban and the peri-urban areas, whereas it's actually the rural areas that perhaps have the greatest area of need. So government really has a role in being able to, as I said earlier on, provide that education for customers so that they actually understand, consumers, they actually understand that renewable energy has a place, it is available, it is reliable, and it is actually desirable. Going to what Dirk said about a business case, one of the reasons why our customers are 87% of them are very happy having experienced the solar energy and will use it again is that it's purely on economics. First of all, it's reliable, and then it saves up to 70% of the cost of running a petrol generator. So, I mean, these are compelling statistics, and it really shows that there's a very good business case for distributed renewable energy, especially as we know that while the government in Nigeria has intentions to expand the grid, there will be some areas that are simply uneconomic for the grid to get to, and therein is where we need that energy framework and roadmap, where the government is able to guide and for us to be able to work with the electricity distribution companies and literally understand where it is economic for the electricity distribution companies to go and where it is better for the off-grid and solar energy type companies to go. So there really is a lot of work to be done. It's been purely private sector driven. I love the idea of a 1% tariff on the oil and gas industry to be channeled back into renewable energy. And like I said earlier on, the government has taken the first step already with a recently announced plan by the vice president to introduce 5 million solar home systems. We've done a lot in terms of consumer education. The issue of local manufacturing is very much on the cards, and we're already looking into local manufacturing of panels. We have over 700 maintenance people and technicians around the country. Like I said, we're in every single state, and we have technologies such that we're able to diagnose problems remotely and can deploy, if first of all, fix problems remotely, which saves us on the cost of having people on the ground. But if the problems can't be fixed remotely from our centralized technology hub, then we can then send a technician out within 72 hours. So Lumos, I think, has been a very good success story in Nigeria. And it shows that there is a purely commercial market business opportunity. Certainly, though, we need the government to encourage the industry by providing subsidies and concessions in the right areas.
All right, thank you so much. I'd like to thank,
I would like to thank you all very, very much. I think that was an amazing way to wrap up this wonderful come together, sharing knowledge, success stories, and ideas on how we can and we need to accelerate the renewable energy in Africa. I would like to thank our moderator, Toya C. Craig, for this last panel session. That was really fantastic. But on behalf of ReEnergy, I would like to thank all attendees, all speakers. I would like to thank volunteers, because there have been many who actually volunteered to make this happen. I would like to thank the organizers. I would like to thank the sponsors, and just for making this actually happen. There were so many reasons that it could have not happened. And without you all, we couldn't have made today, this success of being able to share this knowledge, and hopefully the start of accelerating renewable energy on the continent. I would just like to add a few things on what everyone can be expecting. So we will definitely see that all materials and presentations will be shared. We will see as well that there is a link to the recording of the summit. And for those who have questions, please also send more questions via email, and let's see that we can reply to them. I know that there were 2 questions in the Q&A today, which were also not answered. We did run out of time. Those questions have been taken in, and they will also be answered via email. And I would like to also just use this moment to acknowledge once again and bring back Fatoumata Coker, if you would like to say a few words to help wrap up this evening. Thank you all so much. This is the beginning of something amazing for Africa, and we really thank you for your participation.
Thank you very much, Stephanie, and thanks again to everyone. This was a really nice closing panel talking about realities. I told you all this when we started this afternoon, that we got real stuff happening. It's just not about white papers and all that stuff we learn in classroom anymore. These things are happening today, and we need to put the money where the skills are, where the capacity are, and we can roll this thing out. And 2030 is completely possible. It was great to hear Numlas talk about what they're doing. If you guys remember, I started with the fact that you need to understand that Africa is not like we can't afford these things, is that you need to understand how we buy, why we buy, when we buy. The attitude to money for us is something that is very important. It's something that we coin the sachet economy. We will spend as little as we want, as many times as we need to. And if you can understand that model, you have a lot to make. There's a big win-win on the continent. And so I really am excited to see that some of those examples have been shown, from Egypt all the way down to Nigeria and Kenya and so forth. So really, really good stuff. Also, for the Q&A, just so you know, we've been able to have some of our panels, some of our folks on the panel answer those emails, so you get live respond to your questions if you use the Q&A box. So please use it. Also, tomorrow we have a great lineup. You don't want to miss it. We will be talking to the Africa Development Bank. They will be on telling us about some of the great things that they are doing and looking to do on the continent. Immense investment that is about to roll out around renewables. We were not able to get our keynote today, but we will definitely try to fit in him tomorrow. He will also be coming from the Africa Finance Corporation, and we'll be talking about those fundings that are available for the continent and specifically for renewables. So I'm very, very excited about tomorrow. Lots of case studies and success stories will be shown, and we will be able to speak to. And again, thank you so much for your time. Thank you for your support. Thank you for being passionate about electrifying Africa, as we are here at the ReEnergy Africa group. And we're looking forward to seeing you tomorrow. Thanks. Good night, good morning, and good afternoon, wherever you might be.